Baseball is hilarious. So naturally, a day after we do an episode about how great the Tigers pitching is, they give up 13 runs. We'll talk about that, the struggles that some of the pitchers had, and preview Riley Greene's 2025 season, all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Happy Tuesday. That was a solid one. That one felt good. Welcome in, everyone. Hope you are all having a fantastic day. The Tigers get crushed 13-3 at the hands of the Toronto Blue Jays on Monday. We'll talk about that. Just very hilarious that a day after talking about how great the Tigers pitching is and how it's a pitching lab now and everybody's improving, they get rocked, give up 13 runs, and two guys that pitched, well, one relatively prominently, but one very prominently in the Tigers bullpen a season ago, both get rocked, and it's a little worrisome. Still early in the spring. We'll see if they can iron it out, but I want to talk about Tai Madden and Jason Foley specifically. Tarek Skubal does well. We'll talk about that. Talk about some of the offensive opportunities that arose in this game as well. And then we'll end by previewing Riley Greene's 2025 season. Sound good? I hope you said yes to that. If you didn't, I apologize. There's nothing I can do about it now. That happened, 12 hours ago for me. The Tigers lose 13-3. Jason Foley. So one of the reasons why this is a little bit more concerning to me, even though it is March 3rd for me, March 4th for you, and he hasn't gotten too many opportunities, and it's still very early, and there's plenty that can get ironed out, okay? I'm not saying that Jason Foley is just, awful or that he should be, whatever, demoted or anything of the sort, right? But so far this spring, he has not looked particularly great in the limited viewing experiences that we've had with him. In this game, not on TV. So we're going based off cell phone footage and metrics. But he gets rocked. Only records one out, gives up 3 runs, 4 hits in, again, a third of an inning. Only had 1 whiff the entire outing, which was about 16, 17 pitches. 1 swing and miss, and it was on a sinker. So 0 on the 7 or 8 sliders that he threw. The velocity now for Jason Foley so far this spring is way down. And when I say way down, I mean multiple miles per hour less than a year ago. And if you remember, a year ago, Jason Foley was pumping 101 mile an hour sinkers in April and literally did not give up a run until May, or the end of April. Despite that, despite not giving up a run for the first 3 weeks of the season, still ended with an ERA comfortably higher than 2023. And as the season went along, it only went up. Now, he didn't have a bad year. I'm not trying to bash Jason Foley. We already did our player preview for him. I've talked about what I want to see out of him. I want more sinkers, less sliders. I want more of an acceptance of role, right? But none of that matters if the stuff, I don't want to say goes away, because that's way too overly dramatic for something I didn't even have a front row seat of. But the part of what makes him so good is the stuff that he does have. And for him to be down multiple ticks in miles per hour at this point in the spring, when everyone else on the team is seemingly way up in velocity, is a little bit of a head scratcher. And to pair that with a poor performance I think is cause for at least pointing out. Now, does that mean I'm going to run around and be terrified and scream how Jason Foley should be like DFA'd and he's washed and he's terrible and, whatever? No, it's just an observation on what has been so far a rough spring for him statistically as well. And those two things paired together is not great optically. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if he can make adjustments. I am hoping that he's healthy, and like the velocity went way down last year as the season went along too, right? That was what I was saying before ADHD took over. Like he went from throwing 99, 100, 101 mile an hour sinkers early in the season to, 96, which is that's no slouch, right? And again, still put up like solid numbers, was still a good reliever for the Tigers last year, but certainly took a step back as the season went along. And I'm hoping that this isn't just another step back and that he's able to rebound and recover from this. Best case scenario is a few outings from now, he's back to throwing what we're used to seeing from him. We all look around and go, wow, a little bit of an overreaction there. That's what spring training's for. Ha, ha, ha. Let's move on. Worst case scenario is that it snowballs and this is a consistent thing early on, which would be weird considering how great he was for about 1.5 to 2 years there. So we'll keep an eye on that. The other player that I think falls under the same category, but to a lesser extent, is Tai Madden. The velocity was also way down for him. I appreciate the splitter he has, and apparently it was good in this game for those who were actually able to see it and were in attendance. But this is a guy who, since the splitter has been introduced into his repertoire, I think has kind of turned a lot of heads with that pitch. That being said, I have always been extremely frustrated with his fastball, and it doesn't look like that has changed too much so far in the spring. I was really high on Tai Madden out of the draft. He was a projected like top 12 or 15 pick that fell to the Tigers out of Texas, had a great collegiate career that fell to the Tigers in the one of the compensation rounds, one of the compensatory rounds after the first round, and so was picked 33, 34, somewhere in that 33 to 40 range of comp picks. And I was really fired up when they landed him because I was surprised that he fell. And then we have seen flashes of brilliance from him. And we have also seen very inconsistent fastball, not even just like command, just like fastball stuff, period. And so far this spring, his velocity's been down pretty noticeably and comfortably from a year ago as well. So we will keep an eye on that and see what happens. But, in every level of the minors, when he has struggled for a prolonged period of time, I think in my viewpoint, which could very well be wrong, but from where I sit, it has been because of, poor fastball production. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if he's able to recover that, and we'll see if he improves throughout the spring as well. Just two probably overreactions here in early March that I think, at a minimum, were very noticeable in this ball game. For good pitching, Brendan Hanafy was fantastic and was showing out yet again. It's interesting. We talk about Foley and the struggles he may or may not be having. It's interesting because Hanafy is a righty that also throws that bowling ball sinker. And so if he is able to take that next step and be a solidified guy in the bullpen, how many of those do you need? Not necessarily that they like have to get rid of one. Having, two guys that can have the ability to throw, sub 2.5 ERAs over the course of a season would be brilliant. But two guys that have very similar makeups are righties, sinker and slider type of guys. And Hanafy's looked really, really sharp since getting an opportunity at the end of last season. Let's talk about some offense. We'll talk about some offense, then we'll talk Riley Greene. We'll do that right after this. All right, everybody, thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back tomorrow talking about more spring training news, more news and notes from camp, and continuing our player preview series for the 2025 season. Welcome to segment 2. I feel like I just kind of like skipped that part. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I just repeated myself, but something feels weird about what I just said. Let's talk about some offense in this game. Only the 3 runs. There's not too much to report on. Javi did have his first hit of the spring for those keeping track at home. Trey Sweeney with a couple more knocks in this game as well, and his spring numbers now look very, very nice. Yeah, I'm fascinated with that situation because in my first roster projection, we're about due for a second one here. Maybe we'll do that later in the week. I think we have an off day. Yeah, Tigers have an off day on Thursday, so maybe Friday's episode will be another roster projection. But it's interesting because I had both Javi and Trey Sweeney making the roster, and a lot of people in the Tigers media disagreed with that and think that they're just going to go Javi and then Trey Sweeney will be a call up, early in the season. And I wonder how much of spring training performance really does matter for a guy like Trey Sweeney, and whether that is kind of a foregone conclusion or whether it is a little bit more based on like, oh, if he's crushing in spring, how could we not, versus maybe the alternative. I don't know. That's kind of an interesting conversation to me. I feel like there's a part of me that just thinks they're just going to run Javi out there. Sweeney's going to start off in AAA. And then if Javi hits like he did last year, then, by the end of April, by like April 20th, April 25th, they might just pull the plug on that and go, you know what, we're going to get some production on shortstop actually and call Sweeney up and then maybe try the platoon that way. But they're paying Javi a lot of money. And I know that pisses people off. It pisses me off too, but like that's the reality of how the business side of this works. They're going to trot Javi out there, whether we like it or not, and see if he can get even remotely close to everyday playable value and levels of production. Defensively, I thought it was interesting that Ryan Kreidler got some serious looks in center field, and that's something that's been a little bit more consistent as time has gone on. I think a lot of people in the organization are kind of realizing that he's not going to be an everyday shortstop at the major league level. So if he can become kind of a super utility type and play a lot of premier positions, that is, right? Shortstop, center field, 2 of the more valuable positions in baseball. So if he can play those and play them decently well, then there might still be a path for him to be that type of player. But he's going to have to hit. And that still we have not seen yet from him at the major league level in his career so far. Justin Malloy gets an error at first base. Didn't see it. Wasn't televised. Not sure if it was egregious or not. But in the scorebook, it does say he recorded an error. Jace Young, slow start offensively as well. Wanted to point that out. With Vierling hurt, it looks like it's going to be Jace Young, at least against right-handed pitching, to start off the season at third base. So want to see him get going for sure. The only other thing I want to bring up before we get into Riley Greene here is Kerry Carpenter goes over 3 with 2 strikeouts. Don't really care. Do spring stats really matter for Kerry Carpenter? Like, we're aware that he is, arguably the best hitter on the team. But in this ball game, he did have an opportunity against a left-handed pitcher with the bases loaded, and he struck out swinging. It was a relatively competitive at-bat. I don't think it wasn't like good morning, good afternoon, good night. He took a couple of pitches and whatnot. This is all via Evan Petzold's iPhone in right field, by the way. So, like, this is, this is what we have to work with in terms of, the video proof and the evidence from the at-bat. But it looked like a breaking ball low and away that got him swinging and missing. Again, that's solid 400 feet away from home plate there, but maybe closer to 350, but either way. So we'll see. I would love to get a legitimate look at him against a lefty. It is we're a week and a half into spring training, 2 weeks into spring training, and we have yet to, that's like, hasn't been a thing yet. That's preposterous to me, but I need to not complain about that literally every single day. I just want him to get more opportunities. It's one at bat. It's one plate appearance. Let's not just be like, oh, well, one plate appearance in spring training. I wouldn't do that with anyone else in the organization. Keep giving him those opportunities against lefties. See if he can make adjustments and see if we can get him on the field a little bit more. Let's talk Riley Greene, who is on the field often when he is healthy. Had a fantastic year last year. 4 WAR in 2024. Was an all-star for the first time in his career and played in 137 games. I want to start off with that. That is extremely important, and we want to get that number even higher, right? I want 150 plus games here. And this is very, very not hard-hitting analysis. I completely understand that. Hey, dude, stay healthy. Yeah, you could say that about literally anybody. But this is, I was going to say arguably, I think probably inarguably, your most valuable non-pitcher in your organization right now. He has to be on the field. He has to. He's too good at everything. And we'll break that down a little bit more here in a second. But he is a positive contributor in every single facet of the game of baseball. He's a huge plus hitter. He hits for power. He hits for contact. Well, in today's terms, I know some people look at a 262 average and scoff and go, oh, that's not a contact hitter. Look at the average batting average in baseball today. That essentially is somebody who puts the ball in play. Obviously can hit for power, gets on base more importantly than like batting average. Has great walk numbers, is somebody that was a huge positive defender in left field in his first season in left field last year. Has a positive arm, isn't slow. I know some people when he was coming up through the system kind of made fun of like how he ran a little bit. Like he's an above average runner. This guy impacts the game on so many different levels. And he has just not been able to stay on the field consistently until last year for, again, just under 140 games. We'll take that based on what he had given us in his first 2 years. So want to really drive that point home. That's going to be huge for him. It's also going to be huge for his own sake. If this guy wants an extension, wants a payday, he's going to need to stay on the field. The Tigers aren't going to invest a ton of money into somebody who they might not invest money into somebody, period. We still have yet to see them hand out a big contract extension in this regime, in this era. Like they certainly aren't going to do it for somebody that might not be able to play every day. So really important that he stays there, but 4 WAR in less than 140 games is fantastic pace. 11% walk rate, 26.7% K rate, the lowest K rate of his career, the highest walk rate of his career, 24 total home runs rather in 2024. He has 40 career homers, 74 RBIs, 262 average, 348 on base percentage, fantastic, 479 slug, fantastic, 135 WRC plus. So in the eyes of weighted runs created, he is 35% better than the league average hitter. That is a lot of percent. That is comfortably better than the league average hitter. He's the man. He is who you're building around on the offensive side of the ball. And he took so many strides this past year to help prove that. Okay. I want to start with the walk rate. In the first 2 seasons of his career, he was walking at almost exactly a league average clip. And last year, we talked about how he needed to walk more and that there was no reason for him not to, given the fact that he has a good eye. He does not chase very often. This should be a guy that is able to walk a lot more than he was, and he did that. 83rd percentile in walk rate, top 17% in the league. Chase rate, 85th percentile, top 15% of qualified hitters in baseball, and just not expanding the strike zone. You want to look at all of the other analytical stuff. He is among the elite of the elite in pretty much everything. The one thing he's not, we'll talk about in a second, but bat speed, launch angle, hard hit rate, barrel rate, average exit velocity, slugging percentage, expected slugging percentage, on base percentage, expected weighted on base percentage, Pretty much anything you can name, he is in the top 17% in the league, 83rd all the way up to 90th percentile in all of those categories. So he's good. If that wasn't clear, Riley Greene is really good at baseball. The only thing he has, I guess you could say, struggled with in his career is swing and miss and strikeout numbers. And again, in 2024, took a step in the right direction there. The K rate I mentioned, while 20th percentile, he did shave a couple few percent off of what he was putting up the year prior. Same with whiff rate, shaved a solid percent and a half off of his swing and miss rate there. And ultimately, those numbers are not egregious enough. Like that whiff rate is 37th percentile. You're talking about a hop, skip, and a jump away from being, league average in that stat as is. K rate only a couple of percent away from league average as well. Like you're talking about him being so close to just in the same ballpark as a normal guy with a powerful swing in terms of swing and miss these days and strikeout numbers, that if he maintains that, he's still going to be just as valuable, and that's totally fine. If in a perfect world, I guess you would, like him to cut that, but like that's not needed for him to be valuable. He's not striking out at an egregious clip. And he also improved significantly with runners in scoring position, just putting the ball in play, getting those clutch runs home, which is huge considering, again, where he was in that metric in his first 2 years of his career. So, even if you're like, oh, well, I would like him to shave off on that, when it matters, he's still coming through and doing fantastic work. 294 average, 353 on base percentage, and a 521 slug. That is an 874 OPS with runners in scoring position. Absolutely fantastic. With the bases loaded, hit 333 with a 1500 OPS. Like he came through time and time again with runners on base and with, again, runners in scoring position. So I think just became a professional, really, as kind of simple as that sounds. Like really kind of matured in his approach and how he attacks at bats. And I could not be happier with the results from a year ago. Let's talk about what I want to see out of Greene in 2025. Okay, we'll do that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on all that action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting features because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three. I never feel like I've missed my chance. And plus, the app is super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, everybody, welcome back. Your third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always. So, what can we expect out of Riley Greene in the 2025 season? Well, I think it goes without saying, I am very high on Riley Greene this year. I expect a really big season, as I'm sure most of you do. Not a super hot take there. I think one of the coolest things was seeing his progression defensively. He's played a lot of center field in the minors, played a lot of center field when he first got called up to the majors. Then this beautiful gazelle named Parker Meadows gets called up and obviously is going to be your center fielder. So Greene accommodates that, moves to the corner, and puts up an incredible defensive season. Was a big-time positive OAA in left field specifically, and had one of the highest DRS totals, defensive run save totals, in all of baseball among left fielders. How he was not even nominated for a Gold Glove is ridiculous, but I promise I'm not mad about it anymore. That was, 6 months ago. Surely I'm over it. Offensively, and this is where a lot of people are going to focus on, the biggest thing that I want him to adjust this year and that I want to see improvements on this season is his ability to hit breaking balls was weirdly poor last year. He absolutely crushed fastballs. He was able to drive off-speed pitches, not necessarily consistently, but was still able to hit off-speed pitches all over the yard, righty lefty. Breaking balls really tied him up, especially breaking balls against lefties, but he wasn't that good against righties either. So I feel comfortable just kind of lumping him all into one category here. Against left-handed pitching sliders last year, he had a 182 average and a 333 slug, just 3 extra base hits, and a whiff rate of 43.3%. Curveballs from lefties, 46.2% whiff rate. Those are both astronomically high numbers. And when you flip it to righties, slider, 36.5%, the highest among all pitches that he saw from right-handed pitchers a year ago. Curveball, 34%, and a 160 average. So, he is not producing very much, period, against those breaking balls. And that's not something that's been consistent throughout his career, which is why I am excited for this season. I'm expecting him to improve in that regard. In 2023, he hit 328 against sliders total from both handedness combined. He absolutely has the capability to. I think pitchers just realize that this dude's really good, and they changed their approach against him. And so it's time for him to adjust back. And I fully believe he will, because he has his entire career. And I think that the improvement against breaking balls in general will help. The only real knock against him a year ago, which was inconsistencies against left-handed pitching. We look at his splits from 2024. Against lefties, he hit 213 with a 698 OPS, and against righties, hit 280 with almost a 500 slug and an 873 OPS. 2024, remember, he played 93 games in 2022, 99 games in 2023, and then obviously, like I've said a few times now, 137, 138 in 2024. So he has a decent sample size from those first 2 years in the majors. His first major league home run against a left-handed pitcher came in 2024. So there is still adjustments that need to be made in that regard. And we saw improvements. We saw more of an ability to drive the baseball, way more extra base hits than we're used to. A slug of over 430 against lefties is still a very, very good sign. Now it's just down to getting on base more against them. A 265 on base percentage against lefties ain't going to cut it. So that is something that for him to take the next step, he needs to get better at. And I think inherently, because he is mostly attacked with breaking balls from lefties, right? When he faces a left-handed pitcher, they are going to just absolutely abuse the lower part of the zone with breaking balls. If he improves in one, he'll improve in the other. And so that is something that I'm really excited about. But you look at the average baseball, offensive statistics in baseball a year ago, the fact that his significantly worse side of the plate, well, he's a lefty no matter what, significantly worse platoon to go up against, he still had an OPS of about 700, speaks volumes to the kind of the floor that this guy has, which is a borderline all-star caliber player, and the ceiling is through the roof. I really think that this is a guy that with a little bit more consistency could just explode. That's something that we've talked about a lot in his career as well. He'll just kind of go through lulls. In May last year, hit 220 with a 660 OPS. In August last year, hit 205 with a 672 OPS. Every other month, the OPS was in the upper 800s, even the low 900s in a couple of them. Now, that's also, again, not hard-hitting analysis. Be more consistent. Okay, great. You could say that about every single player in the league. But I think it really does it is going to hinge a lot on his ability to consistently hit those breaking balls this year. And I fully believe he can and will do that. He was making a lot of adjustments from 2022 to 2023. Getting more on time with fastballs, lifting the baseball has been a huge talking point. Last year, I think that's one of the reasons why maybe he struggled against breaking balls. It's because he was trying to get under everything a little bit more. He was just a ground ball to second base machine the first 2 seasons of his career. This last year, unsurprisingly, comfortably the best year of his young career and comfortably the lowest ground ball rate of his career, 43.6% ground ball rate in 2024. That was less than league average. Absolutely beautiful. I used to pray for times like this, for real. 44.4 was the MLB average a season ago. So my point being, he continues to make a lot of adjustments. I think it's one after another, and we're going to look back either this year or next year and go, wow, this dude legitimately is one of the better outfielders in the entire game of baseball, and it's because he has consistently made those adjustments year after year. Riley Greene is the man. I'm so excited for his season this year. I'm so excited for him to potentially take another step forward, and I really think 4 WAR season last year, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I really think that we could be talking about a guy that at his peak is, 5, even 6 win player. And I think that's it. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shouts to everydayers that do tune in every day. We, of course, will be back tomorrow recapping more spring baseball and talking more about the 2025 season. After making us your first listen, make Locked On Fantasy Baseball your second listen. Dominic Martino and Matthew One. MLB Fantasy Draft season is here, and those two will help you win your fantasy baseball league. Be the most informed fan and set yourself up for a league win. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'm out of here. Catch y'all tomorrow, baby. Peace. Go Tigers. Sorry, I almost forgot. That was crazy.